Yo, what's poppin'? It's Jonathan. I have fantastic news, team. The Hangzhou Spark are back. This is huge. I get to wear my favorite hat. I get to wear my favorite drippy hoodie. This is perfect. But anyway, before I get into this fantastic news, like this video if you like it. Subscribe for more content like this because I do upload daily with reviews every day for APAC and NA on the days that there are matches. But anyway, Hangzhou Spark against the Seoul Dynasty 3-2 for North Seoul. This is a lie. It's the Spark. The Spark come through and they win. They're playing Shy, Pineapple, Bernard, Irony, and Teru the whole way through. No Alpha Yi, no NEKO. God bless, no NEKO. We're here. And I am very happy that we're seeing Pineapple because even back in the kickoff clash, I wasn't a huge fan of Alpha Yi's Tracer in the kickoff clash. And I was like, why don't we bring in Pineapple instead? It never happened. Finally, it's happened. And I'm like, you know what? It looks pretty damn good. So Seoul playing, Prophet Fitz, Smurf, Iris, and Vindame. No surprises there. Oasis is a 2-1 for the Spark. They're playing Sombra, Tracer, Diva, on Zen, and that's all they play for the entire 5 maps. Even on maps where it shouldn't be very good, and that could contribute to their loss. Soul playing Tracer, Sombra, Zarya, Zen, Ana on Oasis. And it's a good comp, but it felt like the Spark were able to very much get onto the backline, especially onto Iris. Iris is a key target where he was just dying on cooldown. Because every time you'd have Shy, Alpha, or no, not Alpha, I'm so used to saying it, Shy and Pineapple just come together, dive right on the Iris, he would just insta-die. And then it also helped because Teru on the Zen now, because it doesn't have to be on the Ana, he's on the Zen, and he looks insane. He looks spectacular. He's getting consistent picks left and right. He's outclassing Iris throughout this match on the Zen. Iris isn't on the Zen for most of the time. He's only on there for 2 maps, I think. But Teru was on top of his game. He was hitting the frags. It was fantastic to watch. Great transcendences. Transcendi even from Teru. It was immaculate. Absolutely immaculate. And that was the story on City Center. Soul only got 52%, and that's because Iris did manage to pop off, kill Alpha. Oh my god, I'm going to keep saying it. Pineapple and Shy. I'm just not used to saying Pineapple. And then he managed to actually break through and get that 52% for Soul. Gardens did go the way of Soul. They went 100 to 87. And this was a lot closer because they were able to do a great job and pressure Shy whenever he was trying to set up in the backline. And Shy, compared to Fitz on Sombra, Fitz is a much think-heavy Sombra. He goes and looks for the translocators and breaks them, and suddenly, that ruins the entire tempo for the Spark. Now they have to wait for Alpha, or not even the right person at all this time. Not even a reason to say that name. For Shy, they'd have to wait for Shy to go set up a new translocator and then go in. And in that time, oftentimes, Fitz would find a nice engagement. So he was doing a great job there, setting the tempo. And Shy is more similar, not in the same way as Lip, because Lip is a mechanical god. So is Shy, but Lip's a bit more elevated on the Sombra specifically. But it's more of a similar playstyle to Lip, where Fitz will go around and do all the little things to help his team. Shy is more of a, I'm going to farm the CMP, I'm going to be an assassin in the back line kind of playstyle. It ends up working out, but I do think Fitz is kind of gives Soul the edge a little bit at times, especially in situations where it's very easy to stop Shy from being able to set up. But that was the biggest thing there for Gardens, and that's the biggest thing moving forward on maps like that where they're able to keep Shy at bay and Soul take the tempo with the Sombra. It works out a lot for them. But anyway, going to University, it was 100 to 82 for the Spark. You get Profit on the Genji now, and they were getting some really scrappy fights here. And it felt like that the EMPs from Fitz just weren't getting as much value as Shy's for whatever reason. I don't know what was going on there. Smurf only had like 1 grav, and it doesn't get anything. So just some poor ultimate usage there anyway. But also that grav, it was a good grav. I'm not flaming his grav. It was because Shy was able to find a hack onto Iris before he could get the anti-nade out, so the grav wasn't able to kill through Trank. But in theory, it should have been a good grav because Iris should have been able to get that nade off, but Shy was on top of it and just stopped it before it happened. And Spark ended up winning out overall. Then we go over to Ikumo, which is a 2-1 for the Spark, and Profits on the Tracer instead of no Genji. And on Soul's offense, they just kind of stopped the Soul. Like, Spark stopped the Soul DPS from trying to hit the flank, which is very good because you can't have them back there. And they just continue to target down Iris. It's looking really good. But then Fitz, again, keeping Shy, controlled, breaks the TP. They can't engage anymore. Fitz hits the engagement, and they win, and they end up having 340 going into B. But they just don't win here because Spark are holding on top of this castle, And it's like they're not even really pushing Soul to find any kills, but Soul aren't getting any kills either. So the Soul are able to push to like under the bridge, but from there it just halted. There is a little bit of more push into the bridge and past the bridge towards the end of B, but overall it was like there wasn't really any fights going on because they weren't being pressured, and then they couldn't push the cart. It was very weird. But eventually, they would take a stand at the end there. You get Nano onto Banur, you get Taro doing things in the back, and Spark hold on. Then we go over to the offense for Spark, and this is where Smurf's on the diva now. So this is where it's been kind of dire. Because Smurf, yes, he's been the most flexible tank by a lot in this league. The best flex tank in this league, for sure, this season. But the diva is not something that we've seen a lot of, and honestly, it's for kind of good reason. His diva did not look exceptional. It looked okay, but compared to even his Zarya, his Sigma, the other tanks that he's been flexed to that he wasn't normally playing, it is a downgrade pretty considerably. And I guess that's just because they haven't practiced it very much. So anyway, you get it's difficult for Sha to get in here, but Teru ends up killing 3, so who cares? And they have 455 into B, and they just have to get to the end of B. So they do take a while to get there. But it's not that bad because you had Fitz not getting value off of the EMPs again, like multiple times in that time, and Prophet just wasn't following it up. I don't know what was going on there. It's working on this thing where it's very difficult for the EMPs to find value alone because the supports are actually playing pretty split. So the EMP isn't going to hit both of them. So you're normally able to find a nade onto your Teru, or you're able to trank your Ana if you have it, or things like that, and it just kind of works out. Because you have Teru just beaming guys down, not beaming, but like orbing guys from the back line, and then you have Irony, who's in, right? Just on the high ground, supplying heals to his team, pretty much out of any combat. So it just worked out really well, and they were able to eventually, push the card a bit, focus down Smurf, and they end up winning. But then we go to Circuit Royale, and this is where things get a little dicey because Soul actually win 2 back, and it's like, oh no, they're not getting reverse sweep again, boys. You can't, surely not. But they play Circuit Royale, and the difference here is they're continuing to play the Diva here, and we haven't seen a lot of people do that, and for good reason, because Soul on the Genji Sojourn now, and they just kind of win. They're very much a compositional mismatch here. They roll through A, and then on B, this is where the comp needs to take a stand, because you have your angles for your DPS to get onto the backline. It's very easy for your Diva to follow up, to peel into the backline, everything. This is where it needs to work, and it works for one fight, but then they're forced to trank early. Smurf gets a grab off, and they cap B, and then they have 4:30 to C, and they just kind of roll through C also. They stabilize a bit, so they only have 2 minutes and 13 seconds with the map finished, because Teru, once again, steps up, able to find some big picks. Great match all around for him. But they still get capped. And then that happens. And then you go to Hangzhou Spark, and they're still playing the Diva, and they do actually get past Smurf and cap. They have 410 going into B. They just dive past him, and then he uses his resources. He doesn't get enough kills, and then they just turn around. But then you look to get momentum here, and they try to get Shy into the backline for an EMP, but he gets scouted out multiple times in a row, 2 or 3 times. He gets scouted out, no tempo there, and then it's all gone. The momentum's gone. You can't really get your DPS in the backline because Pineapple isn't able to set up anywhere. The only way he can actually get on the backline is just go in from the front where you have everyone looking at you. Shy, it's very difficult for Shy to actually get through the Zarya and the Sojourn because they can spray around a lot. So he's actually getting spot checked often. And it's just like you can't pressure the backline. You're on Diva, so you can't really pressure the Zarya, and you just lose. The composition just doesn't work there, and they just ran it. And then we go to Coliseum, which I also think that the Zarya gets a little bit of an edge here. They continue to run the Genji Sojourn. They would go over to the Tracer Sombra at the end there, or maybe like halfway through. But in the end, it's like, while you can get your DPS to flank into your backline a lot easier on this map, the frontline battle is just lost. Because it is more difficult. Without the high ground, it's a lot harder for Diva to get into the backline because you can't really flank on the Diva because it's very obvious where you're going to be. You don't want to use your boosters to flank like a Tracer Blink. It's not a big deal. But to use your boosters to set up a flank angle on Diva, Zarya is going to walk at your backline or walk at you and you're going to die. So it doesn't really work out there either. And they just kind of win. It ends up being 90 to 64 meters for Soul. And they just kind of win there. But then Nepal, we get... This is where it needs to be. Sanctum's 100-0 for Spark. It's Bernard versus Prophet contesting on the point with Soul just sitting on the high ground and Spark all around them. They end up winning that duel because, of course, the D.Va is going to beat the Genji in the close duel on point. That's just how it works. And they just crumble after Prophet dies. And then from there, they never get in. You get good EMPs. You get Nano Blade doesn't get anything because of Transcendence. You get good Pineapple Sticks. It works out, and they 100-0. And then Village is 100-97 for the Spark. And Soul do a better job on this map. They're limiting to the core from walking out on. Oh yeah, from walking out to the high ground. And the DPS are doing a good job getting kept at bay by Fitz. But really, you have Irony getting a big name Iris. It opens up. Taro starts fragging, and then you flip the point, and from there, you have Transcendence still. You have your EMPs. They use their abilities. They end up winning. And once they got a foothold on that point, they just kind of held it because they had the high ground opportunity. It was difficult for Soul to actually walk onto the point, and they end up working out. So they stopped the reverse sweep, and they win 2-0. So my player of the match is going to go to Teru. He's been putting up work all stage, and I'm finally happy that he does not have NEKO beside him. He has a real support player beside him on the support line for him to actually pound. And this, on the Zen, we didn't see him on the Zen because NEKO was the one on the Zen, if I remember. Maybe that's not true. That could be completely incorrect, but that's how I remember it. And it's like, he did so much. Great work. Pineapple also had a great match. Shy had an okay match. He was getting shut down at times. But just great stuff from the Spark. I hope they keep this up. I really don't want to see them go out in play-ins because they've been too good the first half of the season to not make the playoffs. Like, you have to do this as a team. So yeah. Now, we have the Charge against the Valiant to decide the final play-in spot, and the Charge end up winning this and securing their final spot. There is no chance for Valiant to catch up now. It is over. The Charge have done it. Congrats to the Guangzhou Charge and Piggy. They deserve it. They played great. Valiant also played great, but Charge came out on top. So, we have Jimmy Choice at 1, Piggy Xerneas Farway against Easyhan, Becky, Marvel, Lingza, and Molly, with Sasson coming in at the very last map, but no dice there. So, Ilios actually goes the way of Valiant. It did look like Charge were gonna be able to come back here, but no shot there in the end. So you get Winston, Sombra, Tracer, Brig on mirrors, and you expect Marvel to just win those against Piggy, but on Well it actually went to Piggy's side, and I felt like he was a lot more aggressive, and that the Charge were just finding better kills on the backline. They were shutting down Marvel a lot better with hacks and with sleeps, and it kind of worked out. But on Ruins, you go over to Zarya comp now, and you're still focusing down Marvel a lot. However, this time, it's a lot harder for Zarya to pressure. It's a lot harder for them to actually get onto the backline. You have the Zarya instead of the Winston. He can't really dive. The backline's in a pretty safe location. I don't really love the Zarya comp on this map just because you can't really get your Zarya out past the point onto the enemy side, onto the supports. So it feels like even if you hack an anti-Marvel, he will die if he gets antied and slept and all that. But if he doesn't get slept, if he uses his bubble correctly, the backline will keep him up, and they'll be able to hold a lot better space. And that's just kind of how it works. Also, Becky is doing a great job on just inting on the Farway. Farway is dead on cooldown, essentially. He did not get to play that entire round, basically. And that continues on the Lighthouse. Even though Charge goes back to the Winston comp, Farway keeps dying a lot, and then eventually they do stop Farway from dying super fast, but it comes at the cost of their dive being less effective. So they just, like, it's kind of like not a worth trade. You just had to hope that Farway was able to miraculously fix his dying issue and live longer somehow. Maybe you give him, I don't know, maybe you speed him away with a Lucio, which doesn't really sound good either, because you're, I don't know. It was just rough. You just had to be better. But it felt like the flow of the fights in this 100-58 for the Valiant was decided a lot by the Tracers, actually. Because whenever Charge had any chances, it was because Tracer 1 would just diff Becky in the 1v1, and then they would just kind of win. But otherwise, there would be times where he gets over aggressive and gets shut down early. Becky would win some, and they just wouldn't get it. They just wouldn't win the Tracer duel, and the Tracer duel felt like it was very impactful. But yeah. So first off, it goes off to the Valiant. Then we get Pariso, which is a 2-1 for the Charge, and this is kind of weird because Valiant on the offense, they roll through A, and they're on the Winston comp and the D.Va comp. Because Charge are actually playing D.Va now. Good for them. Love the D.Va comp. Happy for them because they couldn't play the Reaper, so start playing the D.Va. Great decision. But yeah, so they roll through A, and they get some initial push on the B, because Piggy's just out of mech on the Diva for some reason. Like, he could have jumped off the map, but he gives a lot of space instead. They're back in the mech, not a big difference. But it's classic Puriso B, because you get the Valiant backline struggling to live as the charges drop on them, and it's very hard for the Valiant to actually pressure the charge backline up there. So it's just standard. It looks like they're going to be able to cap out, because Becky gets a 3k. He's looking great, but they managed to recontest at the very last second, and they actually win the recontest with ults. And then they just hold on to the very end of B, and from there, you get the charge offense, you get Piggy going on the Zarya. They find a foothold on the point by forcing Marvel back or killing him. One of the two. It's basically the same thing. It does cost them both their support ults, but like that's just worth it, because now you have 420 into B. And Valiant stabilized with the EMP on B, but Charge end up getting the map win with a Nano Blade anyway. And they still had 2 minutes left over, so it wasn't particularly close, and just Charge kind of went out here. Because you know what? Puriso B. If you can't find that one big ult combo to kill the backline and push through, you lose. And it's a lot harder to do that on the Somber Tracer than it is with a Nano Blade. A Nano Blade does that a lot more effectively to the EMP on this map specifically. Especially with a bubble, I think it helps a lot more. And then we go to Junkertown, which is also a win for the Charge. And it was actually a very close map, but Charge felt... I don't know, Charge felt a bit better here, because you have both teams playing a Somber Tracer, Diva, Zen, Ana on Junkertown. No Sigmas on either side. The only difference is Piggy would pull out the Zarya at the very end of their offense for good reason. But Valiant just kind of pushed through A pretty easily. But then Jimmy just kills both supports, and then they get held a little bit, but they still put... And then they get held a lot, actually. So I said they pushed through A pretty easily, because they should have. They got all the way to the end. Just a recontest coming out, and Jimmy just kills both supports on Somber. I don't know how he did it. No idea how he did it. He just does it. He's that guy. And then they actually get held for a long time and pushed barely in the end. And they roll through B without the cart being stopped almost at all, so it kind of makes up for that. And they push on to C. And from there, you have a super scrappy fight that never really ends, because you had Choice One dropping down, you had Xerneas dropping into the back line. They kill both supports, but then Marvel bombs, and he actually lives, and the supports come back. It was bonkers. And the cart just kept on moving. And then eventually Valiant do clear out the charge and actually win the super long scrappy fight. But they end up losing the very last fight, because Choi Taiwan gets a stick on the Molly, which kind of sends the whole thing in a spiral. So they push right to the end of C. And then on the Chargers offense, Valiant just don't defend on A, basically. They just kept on giving space. You don't close hold. You don't defend at like the bridge. You just keep backing up. You're backing up. And eventually you just lose, because you don't have any more space to give. So they have 5:15 going to B. And again, it doesn't look very good on B, because their dive attempts, Easy on the MP gets no follow-up. Becky gets slept. It's just not working out. And then they push right to the end. Valiant finally stabilized. They get a foothold going. They chase Piggy out because they want to stagger him, get him out of mech, and Choice one back cap. So they basically don't have a B either. So that's 2 extremely fumbled points, and it still ends up being an overtime push on C, because C is a very strong defender point if you know what you're doing, and Valiant knew what they were doing, because they stabilized with the MP, which was a very scrappy fight, so it took a long time. Why not? Let's have scrappy fights all the time. That's what Overwatch is all about. And it works out. So what happens still, though, is because the fight was so scrappy, Charge did get a lot of push. So they pushed it pretty much towards the end. They still have to actually make that one final fight win to get there. So Piggy goes over to the Zarya with 1 fight left. And you'd think, well, you aren't building a Grav. What's going on with Zarya? You can't control the high ground. But what happens is, because there's only 1 tank, right? This is a little different from Junkertown normally. I don't remember if we've had Junkertown in this pool until last stage. But, like, I don't remember. Anyway, Zarya, the Diva can't leave the point, no matter what. So the Diva can't actually contest the high ground, because if the Diva leaves the point, the Zarya is just going to win. No one else can step up to the max charge Zarya except for the Diva that's getting pocketed with armor. And because Easy Hung goes over to the Widowmaker, it's just Becky alone trying to get in onto the backline. He ends up dying to Molly, or to Xerneas, rather. And then there's nothing to pressure the backline. Xerneas gets a trank onto Piggy. He ends up building a Grav in 1 fight, and they actually end up winning. So it was a huge pick to go Zarya. Fantastic decision there. It just kind of works out for the Charge. Then we get Coliseum, which is actually just a roll. Saucing comes into play to Zarya, and he wins the first fight. Looks good. And then Piggy just steamroll him. Just gone. Piggy's just better at the Zarya, I think. And also, okay, this also helps the composition because you're playing the Sombra Genji for the charge against the Sojourn Tracer, and I rate the Sombra Genji a lot more for the Zarya. For Sojourn Tracer, you don't really have any other player who can take any space with a bubble. Whenever you have choice one on the Genji, you have a better win condition with Nano Blade, and you have someone else that can take space that you can't maybe. Uh, and just I think it helps the Zarya a lot more. It helps the team a lot more with the win conditions. And unless Easy Home is going absolutely crazy on the Sojourn, it's always going to get outvalued. So I like the composition more from the charge. I like the players more from the charge, and they just full cap. I don't know how much time they had left when they full cap. I didn't pay attention, but 140 to 49 and did not feel particularly close at all. I'd say Valiant won maybe 2 fights. They won the first fight. They won maybe a second fight to get to the 49, and then they won one more fight to send them back, and then from there it was all charge right to the end. So, yeah, that's going to be it. Player of the match for me is going to be Piggy. He kept up with Marvel's Winston. Marvel should be better on that character. I think he kept up with him more than he didn't. He dominated Saucin and Zarya mirror. He played a good diva, which he hadn't really done a lot of. We knew he had it, but he hadn't actually done it, so he's done that. And then that key swap, again, that Zarya pick on Junkertown, not very many players will make that pick, and it paid dividends even. So, absolute force for him. And anyway, that's going to be the recap. So thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you like it, subscribe for more daily Royal content. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Deuces.